It's hard in families to teach children at an early age the value of a dollar, the joy that comes from earning a living. And as an advisor to wealthy families for the last 40 years, I've seen this play out time and time again. I will say it doesn't have to be that way. And I think there are practical steps that business owners, particularly families, can take to teach stewardship and to give their children a good financial education, but also to understand what can be done with great wealth that's not punitive. It doesn't have to be a life where one is resigned to living off the dole, but to be able to use the resources that forebears create for philanthropic impact or to create jobs or build upon what was there. The challenge for the founder, and you've heard the term founder syndrome a lot, is are they willing to let go of their baby? Are they willing to empower the second and third generation and give gentle guidance and counsel, but not try to run the company all the way into the grave? And that requires seeing the world through the next generation's eyes. That's one of the three principles that we talk about in our book, First Generation Wealth, is the necessity for founders to look through the next generation's eyes, because what was important to you may not be as important to your children. And one of the key differences, of course, in your family is you're not going to fire non-performers. They're a part of your family. And good family communication is just as important as good business communication. You know, Dennis Jaffe, a well-known writer and expert on wealth within families, talked about the common traits that ran across families who had been around for more than 100 years. And he's not necessarily talking about the 100-year-old family business, but the family where wealth was created and they still run it together as a family, like a family office. And the number one trait of the families that were able to stay together for 100 years or more was communication. We think about that in our operating businesses. We think about it in a marriage. I mean, two people can have enormous problems communicating, but being transparent and being prescriptive about roles and rules and regulations with a gentle overall parental love and insight is really important to have healthy, functioning financial family. The first thing that's required is for mom and dad to be aligned. We've seen so often where parents have different approaches to how they want to parent the children about money. And often it's the attitude that, you know, my dad didn't give me a dime. I had to work for everything that I had. And we're not going to, you know, I've given you a good name and a good education, and that's all I'm going to do. And then maybe the other parent is a little bit more sympathetic, saying, my goodness, Jonathan, we've got all this wealth. Why don't we help them with a down payment on the house? Or why don't we send the children to school? And parents have to be aligned. But part of the exercises that we go through are to try to teach the family that there's a difference between the family business and the business of the family. That's really our second principle. We've got one client that we joke about years ago said, I run my family meetings on Sunday nights around the dinner table like I run a board meeting. And his children are smart enough to understand that. So there's a difference in how you run a family business versus how you run the business of the family. It's important for parents not to weaponize money. Jonathan, if you do this, if you do that, you're going to inherit X amount of money. And I'm going to attempt to control your behavior through money I either give you or I withhold from you. And that's a tendency that actually we see quite often. It's not necessarily, if you marry her, I'm going to disinherit you, or if you take my grandchildren to New York. I'm laughing as I'm saying this because my oldest daughter moved 4 of my grandchildren to New York with her husband, and we're excited for them. If you do this, I'm gonna find a way to be punitive financially. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, it's important that if you're helping your children financially, don't attach a lot of strings. We're all trying to have an impact. We're all trying to take stock of the talents that we've been given, the luck that has come our way, so that we can help families create meaningful legacies. And I think often, Jonathan, that we're not here to make wealthy people wealthier. We're here to help them lead lives through the wealth that they've created that have impact, that create jobs, that fund the organizations that they care about.
Promote family alignment and minimize discord. The issues here are that many of the challenges that all businesses face can be more complicated once family dynamics are layered on top. Family and personal emotions and relations are often difficult to keep separate from business issues. So, do use family business coaches. Do create a family business council to help segregate business issues from family issues. Do follow sound employment practices with family members working in the company, such as offering market rate compensation, have clear expense reimbursement policies, develop job descriptions, and conduct performance reviews. Also, do create annual budgets to identify how much profits or cash will be reinvested for growth and how much will be distributed out to owners. Succession planning for a small family business can be a complex process, but creating a roadmap can help simplify the process and ensure that everyone involved understands their roles and responsibilities. So here are some steps to take and create a succession planning roadmap for a small family business. First, start early. Succession planning should begin as early as possible. This allows for ample time to identify potential successors, train them, and establish a solid plan for the transfer of ownership and leadership. Second, identify potential successors. Identify potential successors within the family or from outside the family. Consider their skills, experience, and willingness to take on the responsibilities of ownership and leadership. Third, develop a training and development plan. Once potential successors are identified, develop a plan to help them acquire the necessary skills and knowledge to take on leadership roles. Now, this is typically where a coach, like myself, comes into place with a company and the next generation leader that wants to grow the business.
I think someone once said to me a number of years ago, when you've seen one family office, you've seen one family office. And I think it's a bit the same with family businesses. I don't think there's one fit for all families. I think they have to look at, so we do an analysis with them of every mechanism of communication. And we talk to all of them because some people get very frustrated with, you keep ringing me at nighttime when I'm at home. And that doesn't work. Or so looking at all of it, one of the things I would slightly disagree with you on is you said there's not enough communication. I say to every business I work with, there's never been more communication ever in history. And we've never communicated worse. And that's society, not just family businesses. And actually the problem for me is there's so much communication. The quantity is so much, but the quality is poor. I think a bit of both, Jonathan. We know in a family business, it's not like a corporate world where you have a very structured career path. So I think both sides of the coin, which is good and bad for the business and the next gen, is one family, go wherever the business needs them, which is great. And you get to learn so much. And I'm very thankful that happened to me as well. The downside of that is people go into roles that aren't an ideal fit for them. And that would have happened to me as I evolved through time. And if I give you an example, so you see very often, you've probably seen this, where family dynamics and the position in a family and the personality in a family is what's overlaid into the business, and they're not the same thing. An older brother and myself, so my father would be very entrepreneurial and my mother's the operator in the business. So of course the next generation, older brother and then me, all of us assumed it was the same roles in the next generation. So I was very operational and did a lot of the roles that my mother would have done in my early days, which again, very good for me because I learned operations. The downside of that was that's not the right fit for me. And I said to you before we came on, thank you for writing the book you wrote, because I am a total entrepreneur, innovator, on to the next thing. I was in that role for 7 or 8 years and got very ill actually out of it. Combination of burning out and lots of different things, but one part of that was I was in the wrong fit. But I think you do have to go through that to realise it's not the right fit, and then you start to realise, oh, you do lots of different things and realise, oh, that's the right fit, this isn't the right fit. So that's probably the advice. Certainly try and learn as much of the business you can, move around in different roles, but be very conscious that you are a natural fit in certain roles and you can't change who you are naturally. So as quickly as you can get family into the natural fit that they are in a family business, I think it's the better.
You got to understand also, my uncle and I loved him, I respected him, but I had some significant differences in just how we viewed the world. And this is another important part of the story, I think, Jonathan, that many people go into a family business or they find themselves in there and then they kind of feel like, well, it's the right thing to do and the family needs me to do it. Yet, if you're not happy, if you're not finding your passion, if you're not really getting to live the life that you want to live, you should seriously consider doing something else. I think the important thing, and I know this is what we're both passionate about, is that these leaders find their inherent passion, gift, and make the most of them and communicate that to your team so that you can have a rewarding life. I mean, I find some family business members that maybe are being paid very well, yet there's something missing. You know, they just kind of been there forever. I'll never forget a guy in North Carolina many years ago. And he said, I've often thought about what I could have been or might have been if I'd been out someplace else. So one of the things that I am passionate about is pre-employment policy. Go work someplace else. Go get a couple promotions. Go prove that you can be effective outside of the family franchise. And a lot of younger generation, I've got a 33 and a 35-year-old. A lot of the younger generation seem to be struggling to find purpose or struggling to find some of the work ethic that the older generations had. So I think, another thing is to go out and prove you can produce results. And then if you want to come back to the family business, boy, you're going to even bring more experience and value.
I was just listening to the latest book. It's a few years old already, by Patrick Lencioni. It's called The Motive. And he talks about the two motives for leaders. One is the results-based, and the other is rewards-based or centered leadership. And so the results-centered leader is really always focused on, how can I do better? How can I serve more? How can I engage my people? How can I engage my team? The reward-based is more focused on the position of authority that they've elevated to, and how can they exalt themselves almost because of their rewards and take advantage of it. And he makes the analogy to football. The new hot draft pick that comes to the professional football team, and the one that feels like this was a reward, I deserved this, is the one who underperforms versus the one who's results focused and is thinking like, I'm so blessed and so lucky to be here. How can I serve this organization to be the best person, to be the best, the best leader? And so I think that coming back to the idea of bringing joy, enjoying the journey of driving success in your business, is a lot of work. It's a lot of inner work, and it's difficult inner work because it requires you to really look within and also to then stay focused on what's going on outside of you.
I get thoughts that come to me from the bigger, the universe, and the thoughts that came to mind right there were a couple of things. One is, if you remember back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, people weren't even thinking about purpose. The employees were there working to get a paycheck to provide for their family. So imagine now, this is even so much more important because I'm actually an embedded coach, I like to call that, in some companies where I get to coach all the people in the company, the leaders, et cetera. And so, Jonathan, 20, 30 years ago, people probably weren't even thinking about that, but now they're thinking about it more than ever. And so, and this is another thing, just read a good new book and about the fact that, people are becoming cynical about working for the big corporation. They're not seeing the fact that I'm going to work here for 20 years and get a pension. We know all of that's changing. So it's more important than ever. And I think that's leadership, communication, connecting what you do to something more than just exchanging time and money, right? So whether you're in the construction industry, so we were later in the office furniture industry, I still, when I drive by the Mayo Clinic out in Scottsdale, I really feel great about the fact that I helped put that building together. So I think for leaders, they need to connect the work that they're doing in a way, and part of that, is storytelling and personal reflection, like what's important.
Family business is more complicated than a normal non-family business because you have these issues with the relationships between the in-laws too. I mean, should we include the spouses, and why shouldn't we include? Some people will get upset. And at what age should we tell the kids about how the wealth that we have and the net worth? Like all these questions. So again, that's why you need a village essentially to help this family. And that's why we bring in all the resources we can into these family meetings. But to me, they're so important, so important. And to me, it's crucial to successful of multi-generational wealth to have these family meetings at least once a year. Some families like to have more often, but I would say at least once a year because yes, I get it. It's difficult to gather everyone in one place, but nowadays with technology, with Zoom and other video conferencing capabilities, they can be anywhere in the world, any time and join, and we can even schedule different meetings. But I think it is important again to pass down and transfer those values and communicate. From the founders, from Gen 1 to Gen 2 and Gen 3 and 4 even, this is what mom and dad want. Now we're actually doing something else, which is recording them and having messages. Because as you mentioned, in your case, unfortunately, your dad passed away when you were 2 years old. He was not able to leave a message. But nowadays with technology, they can leave a message and say, hey, if you're hearing this, it's because I'm gone. This is what I expect from you. These are my values. I hope that you whatever you want to say, you become a great citizen of this world. I value education, family, health, whatever. And I hope that you continue our legacy. Always trying to do what's best for the client, always having the client's best interest is the reason why I'm now a registered investment advisor. I have my own firm, Vita Private Wealth, because as a fiduciary, I must do what's right for the client and must have client's best interest. So long story short, again, it was to help others. My mission is to help these wealthy families align their values with their wealth in order to have a more meaningful and purposeful life. So put the money to good use. Helping someone set up a family foundation, because that is part of their values. Mm-hmm. That's one. We helped the CEO actually retire at age 54 and leave pretty much a job that was giving him close to $2 million a year. And he already had a substantial net worth. But going from that to $300,000 as a consultant, $300,000 a year, as a consultant, because that's what he wanted. That was his why. That was his purpose. Mm-hmm. Of course, we crunch the numbers because that's what we do as wealth managers. We still do. We have to, obviously, as a financial planner, I still have to run all the numbers. And so once he saw that financially he could do it, he did it. Not only did he do it, now he's actually doing more. He's doing better financially than what he was before. So going back to your point, when you follow that drive, that passion that you have, your why, money will come along. Maybe not immediately, but it will eventually come. And this is why I teach our students, our clients' kids, just do what you enjoy, follow your passion, follow your why. Yeah, we try to ensure the multi-generational wealth. Our clients are wealthy already. So you help them get to that point where now they have this business that is worth, several $1 million. And now what do you do? And so we come in where, okay, and to your point earlier, our financial life planning process includes covering your values. So every client that comes to us, whether they know already or not, they will find their values through the process of our financial life planning. And then the next gen, of course, is to ensure that their kids also know what their values are. And it's a different process. It's not the same as we do it with adults, but we also do the same, uncovering your why, we call it, for the kids. And that way, once you know your purpose, what drives you, it changes everything. And we connect it to that.